Hello little dragons, welcome to lesson 6.1, linear pairs and vertical angles. This is our first lesson in our third quarter and it's about to go down. Now these two types of angles, linear pairs and verticals, are probably the two most important things in geometry and we got to get real comfortable with them today. So first, let's start with linear pairs. Linear pairs are angles, all right, that form a straight line. So any angles that form a straight line are a linear pair. So if you look here, you have angle 1 and angle 2. If you put these two angles together, angle 1 and angle 2, they will form this straight line right here. So angle 1 and angle 2 are a linear pair because they form a straight line. Now the big important fact here, this is the number one thing we got to know, is that linear pairs always add up to 180 degrees. Why? Because a straight line is 180 degrees. So if you were to add up 1 and 2, these two angles, they would add up to 180. And once again, why? Because that is a straight line. Alright, so let's get into some practice. Let's see how this is done. So in this case, we know that the measure, and remember that M means measure, of angle ABD is 110 degrees. So ABD right here is 110 degrees. We want to find the measure of DBC, which is right here. Now I want to remind you guys of something. The vertex is always in the middle. So DBC, the vertex is right here. This is the angle we're looking for. Well, to find DBC, we know that this is a linear pair because it's a straight line, and we just do 180 minus 110, and that gives us 70 degrees. And that would tell us what our missing angle is. So angle DBC is going to be equal to 70 degrees. And if you add these two up, you get 180. Now to justify our answer, this is what we're going to say. We know that angle ABD, which is our angle right here, and angle DBC, which is our angle right here, are a linear pair. And linear pairs always add up to 180 degrees. So that is what you should say when you want to justify your answer. Since they are a linear pair, you know they're going to add up to 180. Alright, you can use this template. Just always say this if you know it's linear pair. The two angles are a linear pair, so they add up to 180. Let's try another problem. The measure of ABD is 74 degrees. ABD, so B is our vertex. It's right here, and this is our angle, ABD. This is 74 degrees. We want to find the measure of ABE. So this is our vertex again, B. And, this is our vertex, and we're going to go ABE. We want to find out what this is. So once again, if you look right here, we have a straight line. This is a straight line. So we know that these two angles are a linear pair. So I just do 180 minus 74 is equal to 106. So that means angle ABE is equal to 106 degrees. Just 180 minus the other angle gives me this angle. See? And so these two will add up to 180. Justify your answer. Once again, the same thing. We know that angle ABD and angle ABE are a linear pair, and therefore they add up to 180. And that justifies my answer. Since I know they're a linear pair, I know they add up to 180. Alright, let's try this guy. And if you notice here, we have three different sections right here, three angles. Well, if the measure of ABC is 48, so ABC, alright, so that's this angle right here, ABC. B is in the middle, so that's our vertex, and that's 48 degrees. And DBE, B is right here, so that's the vertex, is 63 degrees. We want to find what CBD is. B is our vertex, and that's our angle right here. We're looking for this guy right here. Alright? Well, once again, since you know these three angles form a straight line, all you have to do is 180 minus 48 minus 63. And when you put that in the calculator, you get, let me see, I got to do the math here in my head. That should be 69 degrees. Yeah, I agree with that. So, angle CBD is equal to 69 degrees. All right, so we want to justify our answer here. Well, check this out. We're going to say that angle ABC, that's our first angle right here, plus angle DBE and angle CBD are a linear pair, and therefore, and I'm just using the language I used right here, these three angles are a linear pair, and therefore they add up to 180 degrees. When you're doing your justification, you could just use exactly this sentence. These two angles are a linear pair and therefore add up to 180. It's the same thing every time. Just say what the angles are, that they're a linear pair, and therefore add up to 180. All right, let's move on to vertical angles, okay? Vertical angles are angles opposite each other when two lines intersect. What does that mean? So look, I have two lines here. I got this line and I got this line. All right, they intersect. And the angles that are opposite each other are 1 and 3. You see how they're across from each other? So 1 and 3 are vertical angles. And also 2 and 4. See how they're across from? Those are also vertical angles. Now here's our key point right here. Vertical angles are always congruent, meaning they are always equal to each other. So in this case, since I know 1 and 3 are vertical angles, I know 1 is congruent to 3, angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. And I also know that angle 2 is congruent to angle 4 because they are vertical angles. All right, vertical angles are always congruent. That's our main point right here. So let's try these out. We want to find the measure of AEB. All right, and E is the vertex that's right here. Okay, we want to find AEB. Well, we know since DEC, which is right here, is 70 degrees, and these two are across from each other. See how they're across? You have two lines that intersect. They're across from each other. We also know that this is 70 degrees. Vertical angles are always congruent. So angle AEB is equal to 70 degrees. No math, but since they're across from each other, we know they are vertical angles. So how do we write this to justify our answer? Same thing. We know that angle AEB, which is right here, and angle DEC, which is right here, are vertical angles, and therefore they are congruent. That's it. That's how I knew my answer. That's how I justify it. Let's try this again. We want to find AED, the measure of AED. So E is our vertex. We go AED. Here's our angle. Once again, if you look here, you have two lines that intersect. These two angles are across from each other. So if this is 88, we know this is 88 as well. All right. So angle AED is equal to 88 degrees. Justify my answer. Once again, I'm just going to say the same thing. I know that angle AED and angle BEC are vertical angles, and therefore, that's a big one, they are congruent. That's it. Vertical angles. If they're across from each other, they are congruent. Sweet. All right. Now we're going to find all the missing angles in this figure. And based on what we learned today, this should be no problem for us, okay? So let's just go through this, okay? Let's just first, we're going to fill in the angles here, and then we're going to fill out our little chart. First, let's fill in the angles, all right? Well, first, if you look here, we know that these two angles are across from each other, all right? So I know if this is 83, then I know that this angle over here is 83 degrees. Okay? Now, how am I going to figure out these two angles? Well, if you remember from our last example, if this is a straight line right here. And you have these two angles are a linear pair, right? So all I have to do is 180 minus 83, and that gives me 97 degrees. So I know that this angle is 97. Why? Because if you add these two up, it gives me 180, and this is a straight line. Well, if this is 97, then I know this is also 97 because they are vertical angles again. See what I just did there? Boom! I figured out all the angles. So, let me just, I'm going to erase this for a second. It's a little cluttered, and let's just fill in what we just had there. This is 83 degrees, this is 97 degrees, and this is 97 degrees. Now we just got to fill out our chart. For the first one, we're going to find YWX. YWX. This angle is 97 degrees. And the reason? Well, we used linear pairs, right? That is a linear pair. Linear pair add up to 180. All right? That's the reason I knew that. Same thing we just did, justify your answer. It's the same thing. Then I want to find VWX. So VWX. Remember, that's 83, and the way we found that was because these are vertical angles. All right? And you just have to use the way you found them. We're just writing how we knew that. So vertical angles are congruent. And then finally, we want to find ZWV. How did we find that? Well, that's 97 degrees. How did we find that? Well, once again, remember, if we knew this is 97, then we knew this was 97. So this is vertical angles are congruent. We're just writing out exactly what we did and how we figured this out. All right? You're just writing your thinking down. We're just write your thinking. Write your thinking. Right? And this is how we knew each of these angles. All right, this is the big challenge right here. All right, we got to find all of these missing angles. All right, and how are we going to do that? Well, let's start with the easy ones. If you look here, we know that these two angles right here are vertical angles. They're right across from each other. So we know 2 is 52 degrees. We also know that these two right here are vertical angles. So 3 is 63 degrees. So we did the easy ones first. If they're across, then we know they're, if they're vertical angles, then we know they're congruent. Now, how are we going to find 1 and 4? Well, what we could do is just, we know that this is a straight line. See? And since that's a straight line, we know these three angles are going to have to add up to 180. So to find angle 1, I just do 180 minus 63 minus 52. And if I do that out, let's see. I'm going to do this in my head, and I get 65 degrees. Hopefully I got that right. Why can't I draw a 5 there? Okay, I'll just put it over here then. 65 degrees. So angle 1 is 65 degrees. Now, since 1 and 4 are across from each other, these are also vertical angles, so this is also 65 degrees. Now we just have to put it in our chart. So angle 1 we knew was 65 degrees. And how did we know about that? Well, it's because linear pairs add up to 180. That's how I figured out angle 1. Angle 2, that's 52 degrees. Oh, let's use the same color. And I know that because vertical angles are congruent. Angle 3 is 63 degrees. How do I know that? Well, remember, we use vertical angles. So vertical angles are congruent. And then I found angle 4. And how did I use this one? Once again, I just did, remember, these were across from each other. So this is 65 degrees. And how did I do that? Well, I knew because vertical angles are congruent. And that's it for this lesson. So remember, guys, a little piece of advice in life. I just got married, so I can tell you, treat your woman right and look her in the eye every day and tell her you love her. And don't ever, ever poop when she's around. It's gross.